Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of TU Stories. Today, we wanted to revisit a time that was really reflective of important conversations on our campus, but also some conversations around our country in general. It really comes down to a topic on race, but not just race about race in general, but also how do those things intersect with other people's identities. Today we have a guest here that I'd love for you all to get a chance to know her a little bit better. So I'm going to give her a chance to introduce themselves, and we're going to jump right into it.
Hello, Adrian. Thank you for having me. I am Sergeant Erica Hamilton over at Towson University Police Department. I've been there for about 5 years, and I've been policing for 15 years.
15 years. So, Erica, it is good to have you. What we're going to do here is ask you a bunch of questions, get kind of nosy.
Okay, let's go.
And learn more about your life here. So the typical question that we ask all of our guests, straight off the bat, very straightforward. Who is Erica Hamilton?
I saw that question and I was like, oh my gosh, what do I say? How do I break it down?
No pressure at all.
If I'm being honest, I'm an inner city kid who had the upbringing of the city versus the Lower Eastern Shore. So I kind of got a balance of both. An only child. I grew up in a all-black community, went to all-black high schools. And the first time I saw someone who didn't look like me, like sitting next to them, was in college.
Really?
Yes. So when I met people and we had different backgrounds, it was completely different. So myself, I just wanted to be, I didn't want to be a statistic of my neighborhood or where I came from. So I'm a mom, a sister on my dad's side, but for the most part, I'm just easygoing. I love people. I call it peopling. I'm not sure if peopling is a real word, but I people. And I like to have fun.
I people. It's like we could put that on like a T-shirt. Or
Yes,
like a hashtag.
I people.
So you've been in law enforcement, you said, for 15 years.
15 years. And that's not including 3 years in corrections. So, yeah.
And what brought you to Towson more specifically? Because where you were before this, it's a bit of a different environment.
Absolutely. So I started out in HBCU, and then that's where I was prior to this. So I moved to the shore to help out my family, and then I came back to Towson because I wanted to stay in the university system, but I wanted to try something different. So coming to Towson, they stood for a lot of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to stay within that community policing. And they had everything that I wanted. The community outreach program, it allowed me to interact with the students, whereas though where I was before, I couldn't do that. I felt like I was getting resistance, and I was like, well, how can I help if you're not letting me help?
Yeah.
So when I looked at the mission statement here at Towson, I was like, okay, this is it. So I applied, and I was like, oh wait, I got an interview, and I was like, uh-oh. And so when I got here, I've liked it. I've loved it, liked everything about it since I've been here. You know, you're going to have stuff everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. But for me, I have no complaints. I really have no complaints. I mean, to complain would be like, really? I just really don't. For me, I just really don't.
Yeah. Now, you were at HBCU, and now I'm assuming the racial makeup is probably significantly different.
Oh, yeah.
One could argue culture is probably different as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you probably spoke a little bit about like job description, but like day on the job, what were some of the differences that you probably noticed? Like your first day here at Towson, you're like, we are not in Kansas anymore.
The structure. The structure was completely different. It was like everything had a piece of paper for a piece of paper. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, what? I got to sign this to say that I signed this. And I was just like, okay, all right. So I wasn't used to that type of structure. I was just fly by, just skim through it. And then I was like, oh, okay. So we have structure. Conversation was different. The atmosphere was different. Let me just, again, if I'm being honest, it was a complete culture shock.
Really?
Coming here. And I mean that in the best way possible. Again, like I said, I came from an all-black neighborhood. I started out in corrections, which was predominantly black. I worked in when I first started out in policing, it was an all-black police department. So then when you come here, everybody that I'm working with, I have people that don't look like me, and we are like working side by side. Yeah. So in my mind is blown, but because I've been doing it so long, the professional in me was able to, keep it moving.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, okay. Okay, this is happening. This is going down. But it's made me a better person all the way around the board, because you have these people, don't want to say it out loud, but you have these biases, I guess, in you, or stereotypes that you may have. And for me, I was like, all right, maybe that's not true, or maybe this isn't that bad. So I take the good with the bad. And I learned something. So it taught me how to deal with adversity, although I've been dealing with that from day one. So
that sort of leads into our second question that we really got here. And that it is kind of like the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. So you are in law enforcement, but you are also African American. Mm-hmm. And you are also a woman.
Oh, yeah. Talk about it. Let's talk about it.
So I have got to ask, what is that like? Because you are in a field that historically has not always had the greatest relationship with the people with your race. But you are also in a field that is very man dominated in terms of who's employed. Talk me through that. What is that like, and how have you navigated through that in your years of service? Coming into this field, I was very rough around the edges. Very rough. I mean, you have a problem with me? It's something that you want to say? And I was like, wait, Erica, you can't come at people that way. So you were like this with your colleagues?
Yes, because in my mind, I was learning what that maturity looks like and what professionalism looks like. So people who had a problem with answering me, or if I wanted to have a conversation with them, they would kind of like dismiss me a little bit because I was a woman. I would find that I had to be more aggressive than I normally was. It was very challenging. So for me, the only way I could overcome that is I gravitated towards older officers. I would ask them conversations like, well, how do you deal with that? And there was one lady in particular, and she used to always tell me, she said, never let anyone interfere with that thing that says pay to the order of. Now, mind you, I'm still young. I'm like, what is she talking about? Pay to the order of is that lovely check that you get every 2 weeks, right? And I was just like, oh, okay. All right. So, but how does that help me? And she said, if a person doesn't like you, it's okay. Keep doing what you're doing. And eventually you make them respect you in a way that they have no choice but to respect you. You don't have to disrespect them to get the respect. I still didn't understand what that meant. So what that looked like for me was, even though you're disrespecting me, okay, Adrian, have a good day. Thank you. You'll come to me. Hey, can you help me? Give me 1 second. I can help you right then and there, but I'm going to make you wait until I'm finished. And it might have been 3 minutes. Yeah, Adrian, I can help you. Sure. So eventually it would kind of soften up a little bit. Mm-hmm. I even had principals when I used to work for school police that, had a problem with me telling him like, hey, I need you to do this and this. I watched him talk negatively to the black teachers that were in the school. And I was like, oh my God, he has a problem with women. Definitely me, because I'm the police officer in the school and he's the principal. So we bumping heads. And I'm like, I don't want to bump heads with you, sir. I want to work with you. But he couldn't see that. So you just ignore it and just keep it moving. Definitely ignore it and keep it moving.
So I think you said a lot that I really want to unpack there.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. That's good. I love your authenticity here, and you gave a lot of examples. When do you sort of feel like I got over the hump here with I've gained their respect? And how long did that take? I guess probably the better question.
It can take a while. When I realized I can give one example. When I realized that I had overcome the incident is when I walked in the room and it didn't bother me anymore. I literally looked at them and was like, and kept it moving. Like normally you would look at them and you have like a comment, like you'll say something in your head. But this time I just had to remember I have a bigger purpose. I'm working on other things in my life, and I can't let this small, minute situation disrupt my whole day.
Yeah.
Because you don't like me. Okay, whatever. You don't like me. I don't care. So I found that the more I don't care, it upset them more because I didn't care. Like I wasn't bothered. And I think that was the mistake that they made by showing me that it bothered them because I wasn't bothered anymore. So I kind of maybe I became the bully at that point because I would come in and just say, hey, good morning. I could have had a horrible morning, but they would never know.
Yeah.
So
you could kill them with kindness.
Yep. I used to hear that as a kid, and the older lady who I had gravitated to,
Yeah.
and she said that you kill them with kindness. Again, I was like, well, what does that look like? You can tell me, but what does it look like? Tell me what it looks like so I can. So I've learned to do that, and it works. It's hard sometimes. It is very hard sometimes because, Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. Sometimes I don't want to go high. I want to go low. I want to go low to under the ground low, but it's just not worth it. So I just try to go to the sky and beyond.
So one of the things that I think is a fascinating subject is we're sort of 2 years removed from that infamous 2020.
Oh, yeah.
We had COVID, which broke out and just sort of turned our entire country upside down. Had a very, very, very exhausting presidential election. Conversations were extremely exhausting.
I've lost friendships over that.
Very common response from people. And in that summer, we also had a lot of conversations about what does effective policing look like. Mm-hmm. And you are in a very unique predicament here.
Yes.
Where you're kind of getting both worlds here. Mm-hmm. On the one hand, you have your brothers and sisters that share that uniform. And on the other hand, like you said, I grew up in Baltimore. I got my people, my neighborhood's predominantly black, and that probably comes with its own experiences. Erica, how are you managing that? And before we even answer that, what was that like for you to deal with? Because you're kind of getting pulled in two different directions to some degree.
Absolutely. It was very challenging for me as a person, not even just to separate me from the officer. It was very challenging for me because I have a son. I have a 20-year-old son, and at that point, I was afraid for him to leave the house. I got on his nerves. I was like, I need you to share your location. It started to overcome me with fear, and then I had to remember, like, listen, you can't live your life like this. Then you come to work, and it's like, keep your personal feelings separate, but still do your job. Be sympathetic to others. How do you do that? Then the whole world just shut down. Mm-hmm. But I can't tell you how many times I went home and I cried. And I was just like, how am I going to do this? So I made a decision to myself to do what I've been doing. Is continue to be who you are. Continue to show people the difference of the other side of what they may think it is. And as long as you continue to do that, even if you touch one person, you've done your job. You have done your job for the day, for the week, for the month. If you only can get to one, that's it. That to me, that made the difference. I can't tell you how many times I got cursed out. I got called a sellout. You're on the wrong side, and it was very disheartening to know that people felt that way. Most importantly, people that look like me felt that way. Unfortunately, when stuff like that happens, and one person can ruin it for everybody that's in the country. So it's up to you as the officer, as the individual, to stand out and make a difference. And that's the difference from community policing and I'll say like patrol, like regular, just patrolling, like the larger municipalities.
So for people who may not be familiar with that, in terms of what you sort of described, like this is what affecting policing could look like on an individual level, just one cop who's in that neighborhood. What's the difference between those two there when you've got community policing or just regular patrol?
So community policing is that officer. We used to call it officer friendly back in the day. So it would be the officer that walks through the neighborhood. Now I'm walking through the neighborhood so much, I know that Adrian lives at 3307. So when I walk past, hey, Adrian, how are you? You say, oh, hey, Officer Hamilton. You start to get that bond with the neighborhood. The other officers that normally come through, they're just there to answer the calls. They're not necessarily designed to be mean or, unempathetic, but normally it's not as much empathy there when they come. They just come to answer the calls. We're here to answer the call, service the call, end the call, and we're out. So the community officers are the ones that walk around. They want to get to know the business owners. Who are the players in the neighborhood? Who are the players? Like even here on campus, it's my job to know who all the RLCs are, who work at the front desk. You start to get familiar with the students. Oh, you guys hang out here on Thursdays. So let me start walking through here on Thursdays to let them see my face, interact with them, so that any event that you have a friend that has an issue and they're like, I don't know who to talk to. You know what? Let's go talk to Officer Hamilton, where it makes you feel comfortable to be able to talk to another officer, because people just don't like the police. And even now, they're just like, they don't trust the police. So if you can find that one officer that makes you feel different, then again, I feel like you've done your job.
And how does that, when you look at patrolling, what's lacking there?
I would say sometimes the empathy, because you're not doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's almost, I don't want to, almost like coddling a little. It's like a parent, kind of like you're parenting where you are, versus when you have another unit that comes in to do whatever it is that they're going to do, or with like soft gloves, so to speak. It's kind of that way. You still uphold the law. You still do what you need to do, but it's just a different way of doing it. I could say I caught someone with a pocket knife or, marijuana. How I choose to handle that is I can say, hey, listen, I'm gonna write you a citation. It's the first time. We could talk about it. Whereas though a person who answers calls all day long, they call, they get there, write the citation, they're gone. I don't really care if this is your first, second, or third time. That's not my job to figure that out. So sometimes you gotta try to find a balance, and you have to take the good with the bad, but not necessarily the bad. That's just how they patrol. And then you have your community officers that give you a little bit more. Like I'm gonna reach down and what is your issue? What's the problem? Why are you doing that? Whereas though someone else, I'm like, I don't really care. Hey, take the citation. I'm out. Kind of like that.
It almost sounds like in that moment when you're interacting with, and I guess in this case, a student, in order for you to feel like I'm doing my job effectively, I just got to wear multiple hats right now.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many hats. I got a mama hat, a big sister hat, a friend hat, confidant hat. We do. especially on a university campus, you wear a lot of hats. I recently, and I know this is not part of the question, but I recently had a call. Parents are very anxious when their kids go away to school. And so to comfort a parent on the phone was probably one of my biggest challenges, because how can I reassure you?
Yeah.
I'm on the phone with you. It's just the necessary steps that I took to do that. You're not gonna always get that in maybe larger municipalities, because they have too much going on to actually sit on the phone with you for 15 to 20 minutes to calm you down as a parent. But that's what makes community policing unique. How you go about handling situations. I guess in the end, we all are getting to the finish line. It's just how we get there.
We're now 2 years from that summer of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the good and bads that you think sort of came out of those conversations that we probably weren't having maybe on an intentional level amongst ourselves? And like, how are you doing, like, as a person?
For me, I would say it was definitely an eye opener. I was surprised how many people felt the way that they felt. I was very surprised how many people felt comfortable coming to talk to me. And I was just like, me? You want to talk to me? And I was like, really? I make you feel comfortable? And they were like, yes.
Erica, you are a big deal.
I was just being me, peopling, and I had no idea that I affected so many people in a positive way, that they came to me and they wanted to talk, and they were like, hey, do you mind coming and sitting with us and talking? And I was like, I can be myself. And they were like, oh my gosh, please be yourself.
Yeah.
I still deal with certain aspects of 2020. But it has gotten better. It has helped me continue to shape who I am as a person. Even when I'm having bad days, it's just to listen, you got to push through, because there are people who look to you and for you, and you didn't even know it. I have a student, when I saw her, she gave me the biggest hug. I was just like, you like me? You really? She was like, Officer Hamilton, I love you. And I had no idea that I had that impact. So that right there helps me every day. And she was one of the students that I kept in contact with during that time. And she was introduced to me through Tammy Kelly. Yep.
So I think one thing that people would probably ask, like, all right, you're in a very unorthodox situation in terms of trying to balance both worlds, right? And you're trying to do good. One would probably say, all right, but why do you have to be an officer? Like, you can help your community in other ways. So I don't want to really explore that question, but more so, what is the story behind this passion, like this calling you have? Where did that come from?
So I'm gonna start with my mom, and then we're gonna jump real quick. So my mother was a teacher, and growing up, I used to watch my mom house her students, house their parents sometimes, and I was just like, she just takes in anybody. My goodness, how many people? And growing up, I didn't understand it, so I started to look at that, and I was like, my mom is so nice. She would give the skin off her back if she could. So that made me want to help. I kept that in mind. Became a correctional officer, saw some things that I didn't like in a correctional facility, and I was like, how can I help? How can I be a difference? I thought back to when I'm moving forward and I'm jumping back. I thought to when I was, I think I was in high school, I had work study, and I saw this lady. She was a police officer there, and I'm a fan of Wonder Woman. I love Wonder Woman. Anybody who knows me, I got Wonder Woman stickers in my office. I got little statues, everything. It's really crazy. I tell my supervisor, don't judge me. I got the Justice League across. It's serious. So she was my Wonder Woman, and I saw how she was, how she stood, and it made me feel like I could make a difference. So I decided that I wanted to be a police officer. And how can I take all of the things that I saw my mother do, what she taught me, the things that I didn't like in corrections, what can I do to make a difference? So I chose to become a police officer. And when I saw how you can make a difference, it's almost like a adrenaline rush. It's a high that you can't explain. And so I wanted to be that Wonder Woman for other people. So it's times when, you can, like I said, I didn't even know I was affecting other people. And I had a group at when I used to work for the police department, and I had a group, and the girls would stay after school, and I gave them journals. So they were writing their journals on the week, pick a story, and on whatever day we met, you have to read the journal. Well, this young lady was out of school for like a month, and she came back to school, and she ran down the hall. I mean, she gave me the biggest hug, and I said, "What happened? What happened?" I said, "Where you been at?" She said, "Officer Hamilton, you helped me." And I said, "I help you do what?" And she said she wrote in her journal that something had happened to her as a young girl, and her mother found it. They found the person, he was arrested, all of those things. The mother came up, and she was like, I can't thank you enough. But it's little things like that I took. I was so moved that I was able to help this young lady close something in her life that she probably didn't have any clue. So that made me feel like, okay, I have a purpose here. I have to continue to keep doing what I'm doing. So if I can be that Wonder Woman for somebody else, regardless if it's just for me to listen to you for today, then I'm going to do that. And that's where I get my drive. That's I don't know if the word high is the correct terminology, but that's where I get my high from. I love helping people.
And you talked about you in the correction side, you sort of looked around and said, this isn't sustainable in the way that it's currently operating. Mm-hmm. And you felt, I mean, if I'm really going to make a difference here, I've got to fix it from the inside.
Yep. And if I can stop you from getting to corrections, if that means sitting and talking to you, just like that lady didn't know she helped me become who I am. If I could sit there and talk to them, maybe that one conversation turned their whole life around that day. I will never know until I see them again. But it's little things like that you just don't pay attention to. And I saw that lady again, too. We actually had class together when I was at Coppin. And she had no idea who I was. And I had to tell her. And she was like, "Oh, my goodness." I said, "You don't." I was young. I was like 15. And she said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." I said, and I've been a police officer for however many years it was at the time. And she couldn't believe that she had that much of an impact on me. And we spoke because I saw her when she worked, but it wasn't like an everyday thing. So if I can give that to somebody else, I've done more than what I was supposed to do.
So it's a lot of responsibilities.
It is. And
how do you handle that, emotionally? How do you take care of yourself? Now, we know you're not speaking for all cops, but mm-hmm. For you just as an individual, you're helping people in their personal life. There's some restorative things that you're trying to do here in your everyday experiences that you have with students. You've got colleagues that can be assholes sometimes. And you've got a son of your own. What's that like?
I gotta be honest. There's times when I come to work and I'm just like, "Lord, help me today," because I'm struggling separating the two. I'm struggling separating them. But when I click into, it's almost like you remember on Fresh Prince when Ashley was having an issue and he told her, just, do your shoulder like this. I feel like it's like a two-time click, and I say, okay, all right, we Officer Hamilton now. We got to leave Erica's life at home and deal with right now. And sometimes, they can spill over into each other. It took me some time to find the balance. Because I used to be very aggressive, coming home, fussing, yelling, because I'm yelling at people all day long, especially in corrections. So I had to look at myself and say, okay, listen, we have to learn how to separate. So once I literally separated Erica from Officer Hamilton, it made the world a difference. How you do it, you have to have a life outside of what you do. You can, if you're a police officer, you cannot eat, sleep, and breathe this thing. when you're off, go find something to do. Go skate, go read a book, go watch birds. You have to have a life outside of this. If you don't have a life outside of being a police officer, correction officer, whatever it is that you do on a daily basis, that's when you can't separate it, because you have become that. I've seen it so many times. People who retired or this is their job, they eat, sleep, and breathe it. I don't eat, sleep, and breathe. When I'm off, I'm Erica. You get Erica when I'm off. So that's how I was able to do it.
We want to thank you for your time, but I do want to ask our last question that we sort of posed to everyone here. And you did sort of answer it to a degree earlier on, but love to see any additional thoughts you may have.
Mm-hmm.
Erica, what is your why?
Why for just overall? I want to be able, when I leave this world, when I'm laying on my deathbed, I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to say, well, maybe when I'm thinking back 20 years later, maybe I should have did this or I should have did that. There's a lot of people who shoulda, coulda, and wouldas. I don't want that. So when I'm done doing this, I want to be able to say, this is why I did it. I did this because I want to help somebody. I did this because I want to be a better person. I want to be able to share my gifts, share whatever I have to give. Just give it to somebody. But you got to be careful what you give, because sometimes you can drain yourself. So there's a balance in that too. But for the most part, my why is always just trying to give back. You know what? It's like my version of tiding. That's how I tide. I know some people may say, well, money, the monetary portion of it, but it's not always monetary. For me, it's whatever I can do. If it's, like I said, listen to you. You want to walk? Okay, you want me to walk with you from the West Village to over here? Yeah, my car is in West Village, but I'm going to walk with you to Newell because that's what you need at the time. Some people may say, well, you don't need to do that. That's what you think. But me walking that student from West Village to Newell may have made their whole world. Their outlook on everything could have been different. They may have felt that day, I may not want to live. I'm having a hard time at home. But you just never know. So I want to be able to, any way I can help if I can.
Erica, thank you for your time.
So welcome.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you'd like to hear more about stories, or if you have suggestions of people that you'd love for us to interview, feel free to fill out the link in the comment section below. Thank you all again. Take care.